Hello, folks, and welcome back to another episode. I forget which number this is. As I usually do, I think this is the seventh. Yeah, this is the seventh episode of the SourceMod plugin tutorial. And today we're going to be talking about include files, as a lot of the time people get confused and people struggle with creating things based on the fact that they are using dependencies that require include files, and they're unable to compile their plugins because they don't know how to install includes. And that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. And we're going to walk through that. We're going to walk through how SourceMod actually works and how SourcePwn is able to call into C++ code. We're not going to go too deep into this. It's just kind of going to be a surface level introduction, kind of what you need to know. But yeah, let's go ahead and begin. So here we have the example that we had from the last tutorial, and I mentioned that we had to include cstrike, and I'm going to talk about the reasons why we had to do that. First of all, whenever you include cstrike, you're limiting the plugin to only load for games that are like Counter-Strike, like CSGO or Counter-Strike Source. So why is that? First of all, if we go into the cstrike include file, this can be found if you go into your SP-Edit installation. You should be able to find this file. And when you use hash include, basically what you're doing is you are copying and pasting this entire file, the entire file, directly into this code. And the thing that does that is called the preprocessor. And include is a preprocessor directive. Pragma is also a preprocessor directive, and they are basically commands to the compiler that tells the compiler what to do. And when you include something, it's literally saying, oh, include the entire contents of this file, cstrike, and you can see it's called cstrike.inc for include. So literally just copy pastes this entire file in there, and the plugin is then able to know what certain things are. And that's how it knows what register console command is. That's how it knows what menu is and what methods you can call on the menu handle. And by the way, these are called methods. I don't know if we talked about this, but so that's kind of where the compiler gets all its information. And it's a really good resource if you just kind of want to look around to know what you can and can't do. Other than the API documentation, this is also a great resource, especially if you're just kind of poking around and you're not quite sure what's there to play with. But so if you notice, all of these just have a native keyword in front of them. It's either going to say native or it's going to say forward. And we already talked about the difference between them, but they all are declared in a very similar way. And it's very clean, very nice, and you see that there's beautiful documentation for every native out there. And they tell you how to use them. They tell you what errors that may occur from using them. And it's generally a really cool thing to just kind of look around and get comfortable with. But so we talked about how it's just including it. And then I'm not sure if the logic is actually inside of here or if it's inside of the extension. I honestly forget. It's probably inside of the extension, but you don't have to worry about that or know too much what it is. But basically, cstrike.include is, or the cstrike module is actually an extension to SourceMod. You don't have to install it or do anything. It ships with SourceMod by default. But if you include cstrike, if you include cstrike and then try to use it in a game like Team Fortress 2, it won't load, and that makes sense because everything here doesn't apply to things like Team Fortress 2, so that's why they're prefixed with CS underscore. But so native int is the return type for this function, and then you have your parameters, right? And it tells you what it returns, Very, very nice. And if you want to, look at the actual code from this, um, if you want to do some fishing, you can go ahead and find that uh, CS get team score, and this is the actual C++ code of it. So this is what actually runs in the background when you do this, and it's just it's just a lot of like offset stuff, and it's kind of nasty and disgusting, but it could be useful if you're looking for certain things. But anyway, moving on. Yeah, so that's how includes work, and what you'll have to do if you are installing an include for, let's say, a plugin or another extension or something like that, and you need the include. Basically what you do is it'll exist inside of this SourceMod folder, and it's going to be in temp. No, sorry, I forget. Is it temp or yeah, in configs? It'll be in one of these guys. I don't know exactly which one. I think it's reading from this guy, but you'll see that there's the compiler itself that it actually uses, and then there's the includes, and here are all of them. So if you wanted to use an include file, you would have to move it into this folder. First you'll have to find the include file itself, but you would just move it here, and it'll work great. And like if you want to open one of them, you can go ahead and go into here, and then let's say SourceMod include. Here's an example, and you can see when you include SourceMod, it includes everything else you'd ever need, and then along with that, there's some forwards like on plugin start we talked about earlier. So this is an example of the forward. Beautiful documentation about it, and clearly when we use it, it's going to look like that. So basically that's how includes work. This is going to be just a little short video talking about it because this topic can be pretty confusing. But yeah, we talked about preprocessor directives and such, which is super important to know. There's a little more to it that we can talk about later, but they're much less important than using includes. So thank you guys for watching, and I appreciate your comments. I love seeing them. And let me know if you have any questions. As always, Allen Motors Forums is a good place to ask generally. So yeah, have a good rest of your day, guys.